Okay, beautiful people, what we're going to be doing today is making a vertical planter and wormery. I've never done it before, but I've been wanting to have worms for ages, and I've seen lots of wormeries out there, and there are a couple of YouTube videos out there which is doing the technique that we've been doing. And what we're going to do is combine a wormery with also the opportunity of growing food in a small space. When you're in an urban environment, of course, space is at a premium, so we don't have open fields where we can do lots of proper swales and trenches for growing our food, so we need to be a little bit creative, and this is what we're going to be doing. All the ingredients here, I have all of this has actually come out of my garage, except for the greeneries, which I have purchased just to fast forward everything. So we have a large blue tank, which is going to be the main structure. This is going to be catching all the dye, sort of liquid from the worms, and containing the compost and plants. We have these old chlorine buckets. Now, if anyone has lots of swimming pools, and of course on Gozo Malta there are, the people, you know, they can't get rid of these, so I've been collecting these over many years, so I have lots of these on access. We have drain pipes. I got some tools, a drill, gonna need a grinder, tape measure, pen, a heat stove, also a bottle of wine, an empty bottle of wine for making the things. Don't have that yet, have to drink the wine. Then we need the pipes. And also I have this tap, which is actually just some leftover plumbing parts from a previous job I've had. Then you need the compost, which will kickstart the system. The plants, I've purchased some chillies, I've got some cherry tomatoes, basil, some mint, so that'll kickstart the system. And then I went to the veg store and they've given me a load of their offcuts of veggies. That will kickstart the whole food source for the actual worms, which will be absolutely great. So this is the system, and what we're going to do is we're going to start setting it up. I'm going to have my help from Marco and the guys. They're coming now to join me. So these guys are going to be helping Marco and Nick, and we're going to be basically building this. This is anything you can do at home. At the moment, all my costs into this is probably about 20-25 euros, but like I said, that's mainly in the plants and in the compost, and everything else I've managed to collect from old projects and recycled things. If you were to buy them, you're probably looking at about 35-40 euros in total. Okay? Things first. What we need to do is, you've got to imagine, work out all the heights and all the spacings. So what we're going to be doing is, out of this we're going to be making a tower. So I'm going to cut this tank around here, this point here. Yeah, so we're going to cut this tank open, and this tank we will drop inside, and then we will fix it together, probably with some screws. Then once we've done that, we'll then have to drill lots of holes in here to allow the worms to have air and also to have movement in and out of the compost, so they can bring all of the goodness that they eat into the system. Then this is the main barrel. Now, of course, what's really good about worms is they create dye castings, and they create pee and liquid. Now we can use that on the garden, as you know, for really high quality nutrients and fertiliser. So firstly, what we want to do is we want to create that. So we're probably going to measure up about 10 or 15 centimetres from the bottom. You've got to have enough space for the liquid, so this will have to go in here. Then we actually have the tap, which will drain the liquid out. So first you have to collect enough liquid to go into that. Yeah. Then you have your pipes. Now these are the pipes that we'll be using. You know, these are off an old job that I had. And again, we're going to be cutting them to 10-15 centimetres. 3 or 4 of those just to sit in the bottom to hold the whole mass up. Okay. Then from here we know that the base is going to be here. We know we have the full height up to where the handles are. And what we want to be doing is, you also know that plants themselves need to have space. So we'll work on a staggering system. So 10 centimeters above this or 15 centimeters above this, we can actually make a stagger. Then once we've gone up there, you can go another 15 centimeters and then another 15 centimeters. Now, if we put across here, how big do we want to actually make the flower pot? If you've seen on my aquaponic system, Nick, come and have a look. If you've seen on the aquaponic system, we have the vertical section. We're not using them at the moment, but you see here, we've cut a line, and we've actually used the bottle to stick a hole, and that will actually take one of the aquaponic pots like this. You see? We haven't started using that system yet, but we're going to do so in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be recreating this same system on the blue bag. These are going to be much bigger holes, and as you can see, flower pots, they sort of come, you've got to imagine that they're coming in those sort of sizes. So you've actually got to think, okay, how big is this? So we're just going to take our standard flower pot, measure the distance across it, and that's, again, that's 15 centimeters. So if we take the center of here, center of there, and we mark 15 centimeters, that's how big our first cut is going to be. Then we're coming up 15. Here you skip. So you don't put anything on this one. And then this one, in the same line as this, yeah, we put another 15 centimeters. And then here we have the vertical line, okay? Then you leave a small gap, maybe 2 or 5 centimeters, and then you put your next one into its place. And we're just going to continue around the bucket like this, all the way around, and from there we will end up having multiple points of flowers. Okay? We've already cut the top off this one, and then this is going to be dropping into the middle like so. Okay, so we just need to trim off the bottom of this bucket. Now to make it fit, we know we need about 1 inch to make the junction, and we just start drawing an even line all the way around. Like so. And then Marco, you grab the grinder. Is that even though this is technically an offcut, there is no waste, because this actually we can use as a flower pot base, so we can put the water in here, so any flower pots can actually... So that's now screwed together. Now what we need to do, we just need to confirm the height of this in the bucket. So we drop that in, and really ideally we want the bucket to be sitting at about that height above the unit. That gives us enough space to put, that gives us enough space to put the flowers pots around the side, and also have access to the actual lid of the system. So based on that, you see 10 centimeters is actually going to be a bit low, so we actually probably want to go up to about 15 centimeters on the inside. So let's just take the measuring tape, which is okay. So if we bring that to the side of the barrel, you see 10 centimeters would make it exactly at the top. So here, if we add another 5 centimeters, I actually think probably about 8 centimeters would be better. So we probably need to go in these points, we need to cut to about 18 centimeters. Okay, so 17. So because of the type of the materials, 17 and a half. Yeah. So we need to cut them circular there, and we have the other one. Yeah, so 17 and a half there. And then we'll need to measure again, put 17 and a half there. So that will actually give us our base to mount the system, and it'll sit about there. Okay. You see those? We've got the nice 4 bases, and then this will actually catch the thing, and the worm castings then, or not the worm castings, the actual worm, what is it, P?
Yeah, it's
Moisture, P, the actual
from the
compost, so all of that vegetable liquid will sit in the bottom around this, and then we can drain it off and use it in our garden at a later. What we noticed is inside the bucket here, I'll show you from the bottom, it's easier. You see, the bottom of the bucket is actually not straight. So what we're having to do is we're just having to cut some little sections out of the tubes. I cut one already. We can just make a mark of where they are. Use the original one we cut, and then we can actually make a mark. So marker if you want to continue making the marks. So what this means is when the units are actually in place, they're actually sitting level in the bottom of the bucket. What to do is put in the drain plug for the actual liquid that the wormery will produce. So, it doesn't want to be too close to the bottom. You'll see that there's an angle on most of the bucket, so elevate it a little bit. And then you just start cutting out the hole to the right size. You don't want it to be too large or it'll leak. You don't want it to be too small or it will also leak. what I need to do, this is just this is actually an old plumbing thing off a toilet, and it's got a very small hole at the end that has potential to get blocked. So what we're going to do is just cut off the thread from the inside. So you can see that's now a larger hole. So if any worms do go in the bottom, or if any sediment is in the bottom, when we open the tap, that will also come out of the hole and not be a problem. We can pass that through. Still a bit small. Off the actual bucket, yeah, and this is going to go inside and sit on top of these, and this will actually hold the actual wormery in place and stop any soil falling into the bottom, and allow what we need to do to allow the actual liquid from the system to go through is to drill lots of holes. And we also need to do the same inside the wormery. We need to drill lots of holes in here, and that allows the worms to come into the soil, to go into the food that we put in every day, and allow them to transfer the nutrients across. So now we've pretty much almost finished doing the cutting and prep work. We've drilled lots of holes in the bottom of here, and we've also drilled lots of holes in the bottom of the wormery bucket. So these are slightly smaller holes. That's to try and stop the worms from going down into the main liquid area, which would be detrimental to the worms. And then in the sides holes, then there are lots of holes for them to go out into the soil, and hopefully they will stay there and enjoy all the food. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to cut the handles off the actual sides. That's going to give us more space in the top for planting more crops. So we just take the grinder. And that's the last of the cutting. So we have our wormery, which has the lid, which is underneath our screws. So we actually have the lid that will go on top, just to protect the worms from the weather. We've got the main blue bucket, which we've put our drain pipe on. We've got the slots in it for the flowers. Maybe we could add a couple more slots up here, but we'll just play that by ear for the moment. And then we've got the bases to go into the bottom to allow the liquid to drain in. So the next thing we're going to do is we have to heat these sections, and we have to open them with an empty bottle of wine. For those who don't know me, a couple of days, last week I had a new baby boy, so the family is growing. Someone gave me a bottle of champagne, and that's the perfect shape for actually making the openings for the flower to go into. You need the heat gun here. We start getting it hot. guys. Get that nice and hot, and then with the bottle, stick the bottle in there and open it up. And be careful not to get it too hot. And then you just leave the bottle in it to allow it to cool down, and that will hold the shape. Doing now is we've just cut the main ones, so they've all been cut and they've shaped. We take the extra bottles because you need to allow them to cool, because if you don't, then they just go back to their original shape. And now what we're doing is we're just making slightly smaller ones which we can put salads in and sort of smaller plants. Now you need to be really careful, because if you overheat it then you can have this problem. Now it's not going to cause much of an issue, that'll fill with soil and be quite happy. But yeah, just be careful when you're heating the buckets, because this plastic can overheat and then melt and then stretch. Well done, boys! Yay! So this is the dry run. We've now cut it all out. We've added the smaller holes at the bottom, and with the small ones that we've put in the spaces, we now have the possibility of 18 plants to go in here. 18 plants for about a square metre of space is quite a high planting density. So going vertical is definitely the way forward in an urban environment. So something that we realised, which is always fun for the first time you do things, is we've needed to cut about 3 centimetres off the height of the post. The reason being is the lid was too small and we were worried that the worms were going to fall through the edges, etc, etc. So what we've done is we've lowered it, and because the bucket tapers in at the bottom here, then it's created a firmer seal on the inside. So now we're ready to start adding the wormery, the soil and the plants. So that's what we're going to do now. Now what we're doing is we're just making a mix of soil. So we've got some horse manure that is a year old. We've got some soil from our neighbour's field, from Gozo, yeah, Gozo soil. And then we're going to add this potting compost. So we have a nice mix. It also saves money, so you don't have to buy. But for you guys who don't have access to all of these ingredients, then of course soil, just potting soil is absolutely fine. So the guys have been making the mix here, and and what we've done is we've almost filled. We've probably used about 80 litres so far to fill, and then we just had to knock the air out, so we lower the amount and we're now putting on the next layer. We're using different composts with perlite in it, with different things, where you've got the horse manure, the local soil, so we're just getting a nice mix of soil. The top, we're planning to put some cherry tomatoes in the top, so this really good quality will give them the kickstart that they need. And don't worry about some falling into the bottom, that just gives some more food for the worms, and then we go from there. Is that good, Isla? Yeah? How is fit on the tap? We could have done this before, but we're choosing to do it now. To make the thread waterproof, you need some PTFE tape. So the PTFE tape is just something used for plumbing, and you just wrap it around. And this helps the threads become waterproof. So you can tighten the thread. Be careful not to get it cross-threaded. Turn it on and off, and we can drain the worm fluid and use it on our garden as fertiliser. First, we need to find a position where it sits on the wall so we can easily put a bucket underneath the tap. Right, going to move this into position. Now if you don't have lots of people, then of course fill in the soil in the position, but we had lots of gravel, so we wanted to avoid dropping lots of soil on the gravel. So we've prepared this space. We have the wall so the tap can fit nicely, and we can just sit it there. And it's a good spot because it's protected from the wind. It gets afternoon sun, it gets morning sun, so it should do well here. What we're going to do for filling to give the worms a good kickstart in the beginning, and we've decided instead of giving all that new greenery to the worms, we're going to go and remove the top layer of our chicken coop where we throw our compost every day, and we're going to use that to start off with, and then we're going to give the fresh stuff to the chickens because they'll love that. So yeah, this is the rotting compost that we have on top of the from the chickens. If you could smell it, it's got a good smell. So this is what we're going to put in as the starter. So we're going to fill the bucket, I don't know, probably half full, 3/4 full, and then put some straw in. I've got some straw here. Nick, here, can you come and throw some straw in?
Different layers, so the worms can decide
where to go.
If they eat more soil or more compost.
And they've also, if the environment is a bit too aggressive in the middle, they've also can move into the outer soil, which is absolutely a perfect environment for them already. So yeah, with the layers you see going in here, then it's actually going to, the worms are going to be very happy. And the ideal situation is it becomes a haven for the worms, and they'll breed and they'll multiply, and then we can take worms from here and put them in our garden. Now what we've done is we've added a load of worms in the bottom of this. We have taken out of our aquaponics system, and that we had an old strawberry plant that wasn't doing very well, and there was lots of worms inside the root mass of that strawberry plant. And then we've also, Nick is running away, come back.
The worms.
Nick has, we found another 3 worms, so we're going to add those into the system. And yeah, we're just going to pour them in. You see 3 worms, and they will bury themselves super quick. And yeah, we're going to be absolutely happiness in there. But they will start breeding quite quickly, and we're going to try and get some more worms from my friend's garden, and from there we will hopefully create the wormery. The plants, we've got the chillies here. They're going to go on the sun, so we get sun in the morning from up here going all the way around. We've got shade in the middle of the day, and in Gozo that's really good because it gets super hot here during the summer, and then we get afternoon, evening sun for the chillies and so forth. So that's how we're going to plant, but you've got to take that into consideration. Now we've done all the planting, now it's time to water. What we've done is we've added these bamboo posts because we've got cherry tomatoes and they need support. So we've just drilled a couple of holes, put them in, and you know, this is the first time we're doing a system like this. So we're trying lots of different plants, different planting positions, and in realistic terms this is going to take 3 to 6 months to stabilize and start working properly. So we're just using the compost and all the things that we've put in it and the manure to kickstart it. So we should get a good crop of what we've planted so far, but it will take 3 to 6 months for this to stabilize. So thank you, Marco. Thank you, Nick. And if you want to try this at home, then please do. So love and light, guys. Good luck with everything that's going on at the moment, and it's time to become more self-sustainable.